CBS Sports, Westwood One, NFL college football analyst and host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. He called the Titans-Texans game, and he's got Niners-Rams on Thursday, then Air Force-Navy Saturday on CBS. How bad are the Titans?
Oof. It has not been a very good 2 weeks for them, that's for sure. And I would say in particular the Texans game was really disappointing. Just to get shut out like that, and then the way things unraveled in the fourth quarter. I mean, what's crazy, Dan, is it was 6-0 at the end of the third quarter. Neither team had made a trip to the red zone yet. And I'm the one that has to talk about the game on TV, Dan. Neither team had gotten there yet. And then all of a sudden, the floodgates just opened, and the Texans scored 3 touchdowns. I guess what I'm wondering is, moving forward, because the Texans play the Ravens this week, which is a big game, how much of that was the Texans really figuring things out offensively, where they had 3 straight touchdown drives, and how much of that was the Titans kind of making the mistakes, because it felt like they sort of unraveled in the fourth quarter there. They're obviously in a bad way right now. They probably have a below average roster, rookie quarterback. They're making changes. There's all kinds of noise out there. It's like anything else. They just got to find a way to get a win, but that's easier said than done.
I'm watching the Bengals last night, and it was just uninspiring, very little creativity. Just felt like there was a team that shouldn't have been in the NFL last night. And, the Broncos do what you need to do. You win those games. But you start to look at the Bengals. They're 2-2 in a division that is winnable. And do you make a move? And if so, what move?
Well, they're not winning that division. I don't know who they could bring in at quarterback, that is going to be a significant upgrade from Browning. He has not looked good the last 2 games. Maybe it's Russell Wilson, maybe it's Jameis. I don't know who they could bring in. But are those guys really going to come in and immediately be better than Browning, who's been in the system for several years, and actually 2 years ago played really well? I'm surprised, Dan. I thought Browning would play better than this. I thought the Bengals would play better than this. It's almost like watching them in these last 2 games. They look defeated. They look like Joe's out for the year. We're not really going anywhere. And you rarely see that in the NFL, especially this early in the season. But they look like a defeated bunch. To get blown out like they did by the Vikings, and then you think, okay, wake up call, they'll come back, they'll bounce back. They might have even been worse last night. Now, they didn't have the same turnovers and defensive touchdowns like the Vikings had against them, but they got totally annihilated in every aspect of football last night, which, by the way, last night is why there are so many rules out there to protect quarterbacks and try to not have them get injured. That's a totally different game, way more entertaining. You could hear it in Joe Buck and Troy Aikman's voice. That's a totally different scenario if Joe Burrow is playing in that game. I can't even imagine how much better the ratings would have been. That's why the quarterbacks are afforded all the protections that they are, and probably rightfully so for us as consumers.
The Dolphins win, but suffer a big loss with Tyreek Hill. Dislocated knee, and then you have the ACL tear on top of that. I mean, this feels almost career-threatening with that kind of injury. What do you think?
Well, I don't think we'll ever see him what he was, and that's kind of sad. I think he's the fastest human being I've ever seen in person. He's definitely the fastest person I've ever seen on a football field. It's just crazy. I mean, this offseason, for the heck of it, he ran a couple track meets, and he ran a 10-100 without training. Like that is insane. Fastest guy I've ever seen on a football field. This is somewhat similar to what happened to Nick Chubb a couple years ago. So I do think Tyreek could come back perhaps and play in the NFL. But Chubb isn't what he was in Cleveland. And it's, especially at his age, highly unlikely Tyreek Hill will be what he's been all these years, which is sad because, he really is, and he's had his his issues off the field and all that stuff, well documented. But he is up there among the most entertaining and best deep threats that we've ever seen in the sport. It's been incredibly fun to watch him play for years.
Is there a label on the MetLife Stadium turf? Malik Neighbors getting injured there. I don't know if it's a reputation for these kind of injuries.
You know what I think it is too, Dan? I think perception is reality. And I don't mean that the perception can cause the injury, but there's no question among fans, media, players in the NFL, there's a belief that, I mean, most guys don't like turf, period, but there's a belief that in particular, the MetLife Stadium turf, that there's an issue there. This just kind of adds to the ledger of really non-contact injuries on that surface that haven't looked good, that guys don't like. And so I think that the Giants and Jets really need to do something about this. I don't know that it's so far that it affects them in free agency or guys signing there, but it's not a good thing to have hanging over your franchise. I don't, even if they just change it to a different turf, and I think they said 2 years ago, maybe they put a new one in. I don't know. I just think there's a very negative perception about the MetLife turf. That's not good for him. It's not good for MetLife, not good for the Giants or Jets, that's for sure.
Ross Tucker, he'll be on the call Thursday night, Niners and the Rams. You can check out his podcast, Ross Tucker Football Podcast. You're close to the Eagles. Help me understand A.J. Brown saying that he didn't want to talk to reporters postgame. A short time later, he posted a quote from the Bible: if you're not welcome, not listened to, quietly withdraw, don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way. Read between the lines.
Yeah, but by posting that,
oh, I know,
isn't he making a scene?
Yes.
I'm so confused. I by posting that, he's necessarily making a scene. I'm not a fan of it. I mean, they threw him the ball 9 times. So 9 times. They threw him the ball 9 times. I really don't get what he's so upset about. I mean, Hurts missed him on a couple throws. The week before he had 6 catches for over 100 yards just in the second half against the Rams. Forget A.J. Brown, right? In general, I'm just not, I don't believe that's how you handle things, right? Like, can you imagine, what if I started, after this segment, if I don't like the questions that you asked me during this segment, Dan, can you imagine if I made some vague social post like, not going on shows anymore unless the host knows what's up. You know what I mean? Like if I had an issue with you, I would text you or email you and be like, hey, I really didn't like that line of questioning, or hey, can we talk? And you and I would talk about it. And I'd say, remember 2 years ago when you hammered me on the Taysom Hill thing, which I didn't have a problem with, but if I did, I would talk to you about it. I wouldn't have these vague posts, that people are trying to interpret. I don't think that's a good or healthy way for anyone to go through life, unless you want the attention and you're looking for the publicity and the social media and the discussion. And maybe that's the game. Maybe he already talks to Sirianni and talks to Hurts and handles things the right way behind closed doors, but still wants to do this just for his Q rating or whatever they call it when you get more impressions, more attention. I don't know. Maybe this is a social media thing. I mean, last year, the guy was reading a book on the bench, which I've never seen before in my entire life. So he's a unique guy. He is an awesome, awesome football player, but pretty clearly a unique guy.
Yeah, but okay. You're winning, defending champs, and you're on a team that's not going to throw the ball a lot.
Undefeated, defending Super Bowl champions. He makes $33 million a year. They gave him a new contract when he had 2 years left on his other contract. I would cut off like that far on my pinky right there for the people watching on Peacock. I'd cut off that much on my pinky to be as unhappy as AJ Brown. Let me experience this pain and suffering that AJ Brown is suffering right now.
Okay, what do we do with ties during the regular season in the NFL?
Oh my gosh. I didn't listen yesterday, so I don't know where you stand on this. This would be how people say, if you were commissioner for a day, Ross, what would be the first thing? This would be the first thing. I despise ties. First of all, it's un-American, okay? Secondly, the biggest issue I have with ties is this. Everybody feels like they lost. Everybody feels like they lost the game. Not a single Cowboys player or coach was happy in the locker room. Not a single Packers player or coach. I think I never had a problem with sudden death. I think college overtime's amazing. That Penn State-Oregon game, okay? Dan, I live in central Pennsylvania. Everybody I knew went to the game and whatever. At the end of that game, all the Penn State fans, the players, the coaches, absolute devastation. The Oregon players, coaches, ecstatic, gigantic win, something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. You know what nobody talks about for the rest of their lives? A tie. Nothing. That's why we even play sports, right? The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, to feel alive, to feel like we're doing something special. Ties are terrible, and we're going to have more of them. We're going to have more of them with the new rule that both teams get the ball no matter what. And I don't know what Matt LaFleur was doing at the end of that game. It's like he was so afraid that Brandon Aubrey might hit a 75-yard field goal with 5 seconds left that he played for the tie, which, to be honest with you, I hope it comes back to bite him later in the year, because I despise that mindset. They got 2 plays off after they called timeout with 32 seconds left. 2 plays.
Take a breath.
I really don't like tie. You're not a pro tie guy. Are you like Seaton's probably
I'm not a pro tie guy. No, we like PKs. We were thinking about having the kickers have a kickoff where they start at maybe the 50 and then they go to the 55 and then the 60, and then the first one to lose or miss or the first one to hit it, they win.
College OT, but start at the 35, or go back to sudden death, which incidentally is what overtime when I played for 7 years. I never, not once, heard one player or coach complain about sudden death overtime. You know that it's sudden death. Win in regulation, and then if it gets to sudden death, get a stop. Man, I'm bothered. I'm bothered by ties, as you can tell.
Are the Chiefs back?
They're getting there. And I think they'll be fully back when they get Rashee Rice back from suspension.
Okay, but if you have Buffalo at 1,
yep.
Where's Kansas City?
2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Ravens right now. That's a bad situation. I don't believe in the Steelers. I think that the Chargers losing Alt now for a few weeks really hurts them. I think the only other team that's up there with the Chiefs and the Bills, believe it or not, I think the Indianapolis Colts might be that good. If A.D. Mitchell doesn't cost them 2 touchdowns on Sunday, they win at L.A. against the Rams to get to undefeated. I mean, that's why I think they had the Colts today on the Raw Sucker Podcast Power Rankings. I might have had them 5th. I'm a big-time believer right now in the Indianapolis Colts, even though they lost that game.
Safe travels. Thanks for joining us as always.
All right, thank you, man.
That's Ross Tucker Football Podcast. He'll be on the call Thursday night on Westwood One Radio, Niners and the Rams.